25 drivers, 16 nationalities, 3 champions, 1 champion. Road to Indy TV.
We have 14 drivers in Indy Pro 2000 ready to go. So, folks, on behalf of Cooper Tires, drivers, start your engines!
Rob, thank you very much. We'll have Rob back up here in the pagoda with us in just a matter of moments. Again, this is the final on-track activity for the Indy Pro 2000 drivers. Not for the month of May, but here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Again, these cars will be out at Lucas Oil Raceway coming up in just a couple of weeks for some oval track experience. Parker Thompson swept both of the first 2 races of the season that took place at St. Petersburg. But a great showing by Rasmus Lindh yesterday. Pole position, led the most laps, and was once again the winning driver of race number 1 of the 2 that these cars will be taking part of. The upcoming Indy Pro 2000 race. This will be 25 laps or 50 minutes, whichever comes first. 14 different car and driver combinations that are taking to the track here for this event. This is the second rung of the ladder. That is the road to Indy. Drivers start at the USF 2000 series, making their way to Indy Pro 2000. And then, of course, the Indy Lights drivers. And you saw those drivers on the track between 8:30 and 9 this morning. You'll see them back again for a potentially up to a full hour of racing taking place during the 1 o'clock hour. Of course, the next on-track activity following this will be the NTT IndyCar Series. They have a 30-minute warm-up before they go racing just after 3:30 this afternoon. And Greg Rakestraw with you, joined once again by the busiest man in motorsports this weekend, the omnipresent Rob Howden.
Back up in the booth after getting a chance to introduce these 14 drivers. And I think, Greg, we need to keep our eye on the number 8, Parker Thompson, from the tail of the field. They have worked diligently throughout the Thursday, Friday, and now Saturday session to try to get this car to where it needs to be. He was the fastest driver at St. Petersburg, dominated the action, won both main events, but they just didn't unload with a good setup here. And that's what Parker told me. They just, the car that they unloaded with, the setup that they decided to come with, just wasn't what they needed. And that's the interesting thing about this Able Motorsports team. They're brand new. So they come in with a complete blank sheet of paper anytime they go somewhere. And sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. They're working their way to kind of getting a setup that can challenge up front. But 1.5 seconds off in qualifying. Parker had a good run yesterday to be able to get into the top 5, but he'll need some more of that luck here today.
From a points standings standpoint, Parker Thompson 4 points clear of Rasmus Lindh in second place in the driver standings. Daniel Frost coming in third, and Kyle Kirkwood. He have back-to-back runner-up finishes with 59 points, and if there was a driver that had the most adventurous drive of a day ago, it would be Kirkwood.
Yeah, no doubt about that. A pretty aggressive call by race director Johnny Unser. Probably actually worked in Kyle Kirkwood's favor. Yesterday, he jumped the start as they came out of turn number 14. They waved it off and went yellow instead and moved him to the very tail of the field. The other option, Greg, would have been to give him a drive-through. Start the race and give him the drive-through penalty, which probably would have finished his race completely. So Kirkwood, although not happy with the call, probably potentially got a little bit lucky with the actual penalty that was delivered. Rasmus Lindh, driver who last year was one of the top runners in the USF 2000 program, wasn't able to get a victory but finished well in points just simply because he was that quick, got a lot of consistent results. Stingray Robb, his teammate for Juncos Racing, starting on the outside, his best career Indy Pro 2000 starting spot, and Stingray in his third year here in the Indy Pro 2000 category. Started in 2000 in 17. Last year had a strong run as well. Didn't do USF 2000, went first right into the Indy Pro category, and he is primed and ready to score a race win here as well. I've been impressed with Ian Rodriguez. That's the other name I was going to bring up. Driver from Guatemala. His first event with us here in the Indy Pro program. A lot of experience in the Italian F4 series. But Ian's been pretty strong here for RP Motorsport.
Reference the fact that Rasmus Lint didn't get a win last year while driving USF 2000. That's because Kirkwood took them all last year.
Pretty much. 13 race wins for Kirkwood. To win that championship in the Cooper Tires USF 2000 program. Has the scholarship from Mazda, running with RP Motorsports Racing. Kirkwood, a tremendous talent out of Jupiter, Florida. Both he and Oliver Askew from Jupiter. But right now, it's all about Rasmus Lint. He will lead them as they come out of turn number 14. We're going to get ready to go for our second of the 3 Road to Indy events here Saturday at the IndyCar Grand Prix. And again, as they come out, it's an all Juncos front row. Lint on the inside, Rob on the outside. Looking for that green flag. They'll spool things up and we're underway. Green, green, green. Excellent start for Kirkwood. He'll follow Lint down into turn number 1. In fact, Kirkwood could be going for the lead. Big move to the outside for Daniel Frost as he's trying to find some room as well. They'll work their way through the corner. Lestoshkin on the outside of Frost. Pretty solid through that corner. Drivers getting through 1 cleanly. We see more of that in Indy Pro, Greg. Obviously, USF 2000 drivers can get a little over-anxious. Indy Pro, a little more seasoned here on the road to Indy. A really clean start.
It's also a simple matter of car count as well. You've got to fit 21 cars, not at the same time, but with a few fewer cars, with 14, made it a little bit easier to deal with. However, you were looking at 3 and 4 wide at times down the front straightaway. An impressive start to this race by this entire field.
I was wondering whether or not Kyle Kirkwood was going to try to go to the lead, but he actually falls to 3rd here now, as Stingray Robb was able to get through that corner in the P2 position. So moves Stingray Robb to 2nd. Those 2 Juncos drivers pulling away a little bit here. Rasmus Lint, the Swede, looking to go back-to-back here at Indianapolis. Robb in 2nd, Kirkwood 3rd, Frost in 4th. I believe Lestoshkin up into the 5th spot, but we'll get a better look when they come by the stripe here for us. Everyone's settling in. Pretty good battle further back. I think that's 7th, 8th, and 9th. Or actually a little farther back in 9th, 10th, and 11th. Indeed, Nikita Lestoshkin falling back a couple of spots. Lestoshkin will try to pick up him. Lestoshkin's actually, that's him in P3. Pardon me, that's actually Lestoshkin in the 3rd spot. Frost in 4th. Rodriguez 5th. Kyle Kirkwood into the pits here, Greg. An issue for Kirkwood in the number 28 machine, broken front wing.
We talked about how he's able to salvage his day yesterday. Sent to the back, got it all the way to 2nd. It appears the racing luck, not as much with him today. And while yesterday was a day to salvage points, it'll be a plummet down the championship standings of the Indy Pro 2000 series for Kirkwood today.
Well, that team's got to go to work to see if they can get that nose off and get him back out onto the racetrack with a fresh nose, and then potentially cross your fingers for a full course yellow. But yeah, disastrous here for Kirkwood as he falls to the tail of the field. Good run here, though, for Nikita Lestoshkin in the number 90 for Exclusive Autosports, up into the 3rd spot. Daniel Frost runs 4th, Rodriguez 5th. Jacob Loomis, single car team, family run operation, P6, and Parker Thompson up to 7th. Impressive opening lap for Parker Thompson in that number 8 machine. We'll look at the lap times to see whether or not they found the speed they need, but Parker using his racecraft to get himself back up into P7.
And we talked about this yesterday, Rob, where, again, you didn't have the car, didn't have the equipment that he had the first weekend in St. Petersburg, but managed to race his way up to 5th. We're seeing that in the very early going here for Parker Thompson.
Well, again, for Parker, when you come to a race like this, and as I said in talking to him yesterday or last night, they just did not unload with a car that was quick at all. They were well off the pace, and they've been throwing like the kitchen sink at it all the time, trying to get something to stick and then work from there. Everything they tried wasn't even working. So they tried different stuff on his teammate Jacob Abel's car, different stuff on Parker's car. They're getting closer, he said, but nowhere near where they still need to be. We'll look more at lap times as they get rolling, but Rasmus Lint, driver who's looking to try to take control of the championship here. As they run, he'd have 110 points. He'd have a 15-point lead on Parker Thompson, as Lint, of course, had a better weekend at St. Petersburg than Parker is having here at Indianapolis.
By the way, it appears that Kirkwood did get the car up and going, but again, he's dealing with being a lap down very early in this race. So now he's got to hope for some unfortunate happenings for other drivers, some attrition. Again, just trying to make up some points and try to salvage what he can out of this second race this weekend.
So again, looking at Loomis there, Jacob Loomis having a great run. P6 right now for Loomis. Impressive for that team. Again, Moses Smith working with that squad. Daniel Frost laying down the fast lap of the race here. Driver out of Singapore for Exclusive Autosport, a 119.618. Frost able to get by his teammate Listoshkin. So move Daniel Frost back into third, Listoshkin to fourth. Good run here for the Exclusive Autosports crew. Currently running in third and fourth. Again, Jacob Loomis in that fifth spot, driver out of Texas, putting a program together, buying one of the Tatis PM18s, got that car put together and making his debut here after doing some testing down in Texas. And the same thing with Parker Thompson and the Able Motorsports crew, Greg. Loomis comes in here with absolutely no data whatsoever. You have no idea what setup you're going to put on the car. You do something you think is going to be a pretty good baseline for a flat, smooth racetrack with high speed, and then you build from there. Every session you're trying to make gains, and even if you go slower, that's not a negative, it's a positive. You can go in the other direction. But it's just a process of being able to find that speed and make the car better every session. Although in a race like this, you're on track for maybe 6-7 sessions max in a weekend.
And the thing is that this is the only time they're on track today. So whatever data you learned yesterday, it's all theory. You can't go test it. You're hoping when you make a change from Friday to Saturday, this is the lab right here, this race that is taking place as we speak.
Most definitely. We're going to watch the battle potentially between Jacob Loomis and Parker Thompson. Both those drivers pretty evenly matched. Thompson's definitely found some speed, a 120.5 for Parker Thompson, 119.9 for Rasmus Lint, only 0.6 of a second off. In qualifying, he was off by about 1.4 seconds. So Parker, they have found some speed in that number 8 machine for Able Motorsports. And really, Greg, that's one of the reasons why Parker Thompson's there. Jacob Able, it's a family team. Able Motorsports, they brought Parker in, a veteran driver in the series, a race winner in Indy Pro last year. Bring him in and get him to help you with the setup. The feedback he's providing to that team, their engineers, they're building that database of knowledge and setup information that Jacob will be able to use next year.
And we referenced this yesterday that while there were a couple of drivers that had Indiana ties in the USF 2000 series, not the case in the Indy Pro series, but Able is the closest. He is originally from Louisville. So this is a bit of a home event for him this weekend.
I would tell you that almost every driver here wants to call this place home.
Of course.
So this, especially right beside us here in the victory podium, that's where they want to call home. And we've seen some guys do it. Braden Eves in USF 2000, back-to-back wins here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Rasmus Lint trying to do the same thing. He'd like to go 2 for 2 here at IMS. And I guarantee you that Robert McGinnis and Indy Lights would like to do it because he's trying to follow in the footsteps of Colton Herta, who won both races in Indy Lights here on the road course last year and the Freedom 100. You do the sweep. You win all 3 races in Indianapolis in May, and you've done something special.
Let's talk about, though, what is happening at the front 3 of the field, and that is that Rasmus Lint starting to pull away from his teammate in Stingray Robb. In fact, right now the gap from second to third, about half of that is what it is from second to first. In other words, instead of chasing his teammate in front of him, Stingray Robb's going to have to worry about the guy in his rearview mirror. Frost set the fastest lap of the race in race 3 and has gotten closer to him lap 4 and lap 5.
And indeed, on the last lap, Daniel Frost in that number 68 machine actually quicker than the leader, Rasmus Lint. Not by much, just about a 1/10 of a second. But nonetheless, Frost still very quick in the number 68. He was 0.3 faster than Stingray Robb. He's only a half a second back. So we may see ourselves with a battle for second spot here pretty soon between the number 2 of Stingray Robb and the 68 of Daniel Frost. Parker Thompson definitely closing up to Jacob Loomis as well. Quicker by a half a second last time by. So we're going to see a fight there too. Number 5 of Rodriguez closing up to Listoshkin. So I think we've got 3 battles potentially brewing here for 2nd, 4th, and 6th.
Yeah, the 4-5 battle, by the way, is down to about 0.3 of a second. So that is about the closest gap on the racetrack right now. Listoshkin in the 90, Rodriguez in the 5.
Good run for Philippe Dennis again, too. He's in the middle of a battle here with Anthony Saravale. They're not that far behind Moses De Oliveira. That is 8th, 9th, and 10th. Jacob Able about 2.6 seconds back. Abel does not have a lot of experience, just started racing a couple of years ago, but has been very impressive. Did a couple of years of karts and then up into cars, and coming off a win in the F3 program recently, and excited to see what Jacob Abel can do here as part of this road to Indy. And again, for them, every race weekend is a fresh weekend where they're just filling that data book. That's all what it's all about.
And Rob, let's talk about this. You touched on the difference in experience at the start. Again, when saying, hey, you have 14 cars, you're 3 or 4 wide, but they're able to get through turn 1 cleanly. An experience standpoint, it's easy to say. From a power standpoint, from a car standpoint, what's the difference in these cars and what fans just saw in the USF 2000 series?
If I were to put it in one sentence, it's more of everything is really what it is. It's 100 more horsepower. The brakes are much more aggressive, better brakes, more like the tires are wider, so more grip, more aerodynamic downforce. So yeah, we shrink down that the braking zone coming into turn number 1 with the braking package that we have. But again, when in talking about experience, you look at a guy like Rasmus Lent, Daniel Frost, Stingray Robb, Nikita Listoshkin. They went through those issues early in USF 2000 and maybe overcooking it into turn number 1. All of them have been involved in start line incidents. It's that experience that allows them to get through clean, to give each other some more room. That's the difference between the drivers in USF 2000. So many of them coming right out of karting, where there's maybe a little more contact than you'd have here in open wheel formula car racing, and that's why we see incidents, I think, happen more in USF 2000 and less in Indy Pro.
By the way, Rasmus Lent back to the top of the field, starting to create even more of a gap with his teammate in Stingray Robb. That has now grown to 1.6 seconds from first place to second place as Rasmus Lent looks for the weekend sweep here at Indianapolis in this Indy Pro 2000 series.
One of the issues when you're trying to make a pass on someone here, you got to get done on the straightaway. If you're trying to close up in some of the faster parts of the track, if you're too close, you lose that air off the front wing, and the car will start to get what they call aero wash, or kind of it'll start to push a little bit, and it just won't turn in when you're trying to get the thing to get positive and turn in. So we're watching that right now with Parker Thompson. He's most definitely closing up here on Jacob Loomis, but he's kind of stalled at about 0.4 of a second back. Rodriguez was closing up on Listoshkin as well. That's that battle for 4th spot. Listoshkin in the black and red exclusive Autosports number 90. Listoshkin in the black and gray number 5 for RP Motorsports Racing. But it's just in this last lap, Listoshkin's kind of dialed things in. It went a half a second faster and has pushed that gap out to about a full second. So Kyle Kirkwood lap back, as we said, being told the number 13 has spun on the racetrack. So potentially a driver spinning on track. We don't have a 13, but a driver did go around. We'll see who falls down the order, potentially gets back going again here, but indeed one driver going around. Otherwise, up front, no issues for Rasmus Lent. It's been a perfect weekend for the driver from Sweden. Did not get a win in USF 2000, but looking to get 2 of them here early in the season for Indy Pro. Rasmus Lent running for Juncos Racing, the team that won the championship last year with Renus VK. And they run first and second now in Lent and Robb.
And Lent is kind of consistently putting about 1/10 or 2/10 of a second of an additional gap between he and Robb pretty much every lap through. And again, Robb now has Frost 0.7 of a second back here behind him. So he's doing a good job of consistently holding off the man behind him in third, but is losing ground on his teammate in first.
One of the interesting things we're watching here is the fact that Listoshkin was a half a second quicker than Rodriguez, and in this last lap, Rodriguez a half a second quicker on the other side. These drivers they're kind of swapping back and forth between 20.2s and 20.7s. Neither driver able to knock out that consistent lap time to pull away. So Rodriguez closes back up to within 0.4 of a second.
I think the driver that got around was Charles Finelli about a lap or so ago, Rob. And again, he's kind of been running his own race over the last couple of days. He did not take a time in either of the qualifying sessions yesterday, currently in 13th place. So he did not lose position because of that off track. But again, that's the driver that was briefly off.
Well, let's put it this way. Here's one thing to consider. All these drivers we talk about in USF 2000, Indy Lights, anywhere from about 14 to 22, 23 years of age. We have a couple in their high 20s. Let's just say Charles is north of 50. So here's a guy out here who has a blast racing, and the amount of pace that he puts on and coming to run with us last year, so impressive with the speed that he shows running against these youngsters. Charles Finelli, a 1:24.4 last time by. He's about 2 to 3 seconds off the pace here this weekend. He's a lot quicker at some of the other tracks. But we love having Charles here. Fat Boy Racing is the team. They're great people. They've brought in Philippe Dennis as a second car here this year, so awesome to have Philippe there. But the Fat Boy Racing guys know how to have a good time here at the racetrack. And when they go racing, they do. Of course, Philippe Dennis started near the very front of the pack yesterday, and I expect Philippe to run for top 5 finishes here in 2019.
Currently running 10th is his teammate in Philippe Dennis currently.
So watching again the potential battle between Jacob Loomis and Parker Thompson. That is 6th and 7th. Parker just kind of chipping away at it, inching forward, just over 0.3 of a second back. Was a 10th quicker last time by. And Thompson just trying to keep pushing on young Loomis to see if he can't force him into a mistake here. Coming out of turn number 11 through 12. Or 212, rather. Coming through 11 here, back up onto the racetrack between turns 1 and 2 on the oval. Diving back into turn number 12. A couple of battles forming up. Daniel Frost not letting Stingray Robb get away at all. They're 0.4 of a second back. Here's that next battle, Stoshkin and Rodriguez. What's the gap there? About 0.6 of a second. Same with Loomis and Thompson. That's a half a second. De La Vera and Serra separated by about 0.7 of a second. So we've got about 3 or 4 battles potentially shaping up.
Yeah, right now the closest battle on the track is that battle for position, both a podium battle. Stingray Robb in second, Daniel Frost in third.
For me, it's the impressive run right now for Rasmus Lint in that number 10 machine for Juncos Racing. When he came into the program last year, I knew the speed he had. I'd watched him run in top-level karting events, both internationally and coming over to run a couple of the big races here in the U.S., and the kid just has blinding speed, and it's the confidence that a lot of these young drivers are looking for. Last year, Rasmus involved in a couple of incidents, wasn't able to get that breakout win that provides so much confidence and momentum for these young pilots. Yesterday's victory is really working for him, and if he gets another one here, he is going to be strong. Although the interesting thing about it is for these drivers here, they go from a track, Greg, that is something that they're used to, obviously, a road course here. When they go to the oval at Lucas Oil Raceway, for a young Swedish guy like Rasmus Lint, it's going to be eyes wide open when they get around that track.
That bullring, of course, comes up in just a couple of weeks. You'll see the drivers of the Indy Light Series, of course, here for the Freedom 100. The drivers in kind of steps 2 and 3 of the Road to Indy ladder, they're over at Lucas Oil Raceway on Indy 500 weekend.
Yeah, the USF 2000 drivers run the Freedom 75, Indy Pro the Freedom 90. And the interesting thing about that racetrack is, common thought when you're running an oval is you're out at the wall, you get into the corner, you drop it down to the apex and let it rise back out to the wall. With the amount of downforce we have on these cars, they just run right around the wall, all the way around for 75 and 90 laps respectively. And the drivers will tell you when they get out, maybe a little dizzy, and happy that it's over, I think, sometimes, because it is some pretty exciting racing running up on the wall like they do.
So the outside line is preferred, but just no Darlington stripe is what you're telling me on those cars.
Exactly that. But the key is you have to be able to make the car to work on the bottom still. Fast ways around the top, but when you're potentially coming up for some lap cars or a driver you're trying to get by, you've got to be strong on the bottom of the racetrack.
By the way, let's talk about the battle for second and third, because we had talked about that shaping up to be the best battle on the track. Stingray Robb has found something. He's gotten a little bit more separation. Last time by, that lead was right at about a second. And as we watch him go by the timing and scoring stripe, it is the same. So a little more cushion now for Stingray Robb in second place.
Back-to-back 119.9. Some couple of really good laps below that 120 mark for Stingray Robb. In fact, all 3 of the leaders into the 119.9s. Daniel Frost 119.8 around this racetrack. So Frost still within a second. Closest battle further back, still Parker Thompson trying to get by Jacob Loomis. Still that 0.3 of a second off. Again, 1/10 of a second quicker for Thompson, but Jacob Loomis, I'm impressed with a guy like Parker Thompson behind him with such a resume, such a reputation. To have him pushing behind you like that, Jacob Loomis has not flinched at all.
We talked about the job that Thompson has done again. Maybe doesn't have the best equipment this weekend, but has been a solid race driver each of the last 2 days.
He's trying to go by Loomis right now. Tried to go to the outside of turn number 7, wasn't able to make that stick, and I think we're going to have a battle for further back as well. Indeed, I believe that De La Vera and Saravalli have closed back up. Moises De La Vera right on the rear now of Parker Thompson. Parker tried to move on the outside of turn 7, didn't work, and that allowed De La Vera to close up. So we've got 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th within about a second. Indeed, as they work their way through the final quarter on this racetrack, Parker Thompson needs to get that breathing room back from De La Vera. And hey, you know what? Looking at the lap times last time by, De La Vera's coming. 120.5 last time, a 121 flat. He was a full second quicker than Parker Thompson on this last lap.
Frankly, there's not big of a gap at this point, Rob, from 6 all the way back to 11. So
True.
all the racing activity in the middle of the field has allowed some of the guys on the tail end of the lead lap to play a little catch-up.
We'll see how things shake out here, but you're right. It's Loomis in 6th in the number 9. It's Parker Thompson, the white number 8. De La Vera in the white and blue number 6. Saravalli in 9th in the number 11. And Philippe Dennis in that bright yellow number 98. Then Jacob Abel in the number 51. All those drivers within probably about maybe 5 seconds total, if you go all the way back to Abel as well.
And you got the fine line between holding your position and blocking. The number 9 car of Loomis has been given a warning for blocking. So, again, learning what you can do, learning what you can't do in a race car as part of this developmental series as well. And so we'll keep our eyes on that for number 9 and Loomis.
Move by Saravalli to go around the outside of De La Vera. Does he make it stick as they come through? I don't think so. I think he slotted back in. But, yeah, Saravalli to the inside. Oh, big squirrel coming through turn number 13. Saravalli getting a little bit anxious. Here comes Dennis around the outside. They'll go side by side coming onto the front straightaway. Philippe Dennis up against the wall. Saravalli in the bottom of the racetrack in that red number 11, that Becerra Racing entry. And Dennis, I believe, completing the pass. But here comes Saravalli looking back to the inside into the braking zone. That's a fight for 9th position now. And give it to Dennis. Philippe Dennis is going to take it. That was Saravalli trying to get by De La Vera. He was side by side coming out of turn number 11. Couldn't get the pass done in 12. Tried to make the move to the inside of 13, got up on the curb, but the car got really squirrely on him, almost rotated around. And losing that run at a 13, that's the run that leads you down into turn number 1. You have to be good there. If you can't get out of 13, you lose all the drive all the way out down to turn number 1. Rasmuth Lint in the number 10 now leading by 1.9 seconds, looking to get his second win here in Indy Pro 2000 competition. Stingray Robb still in second. Daniel Frost closes up to within a second now. Wow, gained 0.4 of a second there. Daniel Frost down to a 1:19.9, quicker than both of the leaders. If Frost can continue that pace, we may see a fight for second, but otherwise, it's a 0.6 of a second gap.
And again, this is kind of getting back between second and third to what we saw maybe 10 laps ago, where again, Stingray Robb had pushed that out to have a bit more of a cushion, but clearly Frost has got something in terms of the pace of that car as he still maintains having the fastest lap of the race earlier.
Parker Thompson closing back to 0.7 of a second on Jacob Loomis. He's got that cushion rebuilt on De La Vera in 8th. 1.9 seconds from Thompson back to De La Vera, so he needs that cushion so he can go back to work and see if he can't get by Loomis. They'll work their way down Holman Boulevard from 6 down to turn number 7. Rasmuth Lint. What a weekend he has had here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. First career Road to Indy victory, lining up to back it up with a second here. Lint, Robb, and Frost looked like the podium at this point. Daniel Frost, does he get any closer this time by? About the same. In fact, he lost 1/10 of a second, still 0.6 back. Nikita Listoshkin, his best run of the year, in 4th spot. He's been able to pull away from Ian Rodriguez, who's in 5th. Then it's that battle for 6th and 7th.
But what's interesting, Rob, is that 6 and 7 have kind of separated from the guys behind them and have gotten closer to Rodriguez in 5th. And right now, as we talk about the podium spots, there's about an 8-second gap from 3rd to 4th. But the race is starting to compact a little bit for the guys in the middle of the field.
This is really interesting. You're right. Rodriguez, a 1:21.8, running on the track by himself. Jacob Loomis was a second, 1.2 seconds faster that last lap. He's only 1.5 back. We may find ourselves with a battle for P5. And again, as they run on the racetrack, if Lint were to win, he'd have 109 points, would leave Indianapolis with a 14-point lead on Parker Thompson. Thompson, again, trying to limit that bleeding to see if he can't get himself back up to 6th, potentially 5th. But Rasmus Lint coming off some pretty good finishes at St. Petersburg, looking to grab the point lead as we head to Lucas Oil Raceway at the end of the month. Again, the battle shaping up for 5th, 6th, and 7th. Daniel Frost most definitely closer to Stingray Robb to within 0.4 of a second now. Frost looking to challenge here as we still have about 7 laps remaining, or 6 laps remaining.
Rob, on that last lap, he took about 0.2 of a second off. So obviously, if he can maintain that pace, there is still time to jump to a taller podium spot and pick up more points if Frost can get around Rob here in these final 7 laps.
Jacob Loomis having a look to the inside of Ian Rodriguez. They have arrived on the scene. Rodriguez better watch out now because Loomis ready to attack. And if they get slowed up at all, I expect to see Moises de Oliveira and Philippe Dennis come into the fight there as well. They'll need to get by Rodriguez potentially as they work their way out of the switchback now, 5 and 6 into 7. This long run down Holman Boulevard. Not close enough, I don't think.
It is a virtual conga line right now between spots 5 and 11 on the track. That's where the most contentious battle is, and they're getting ready to make the exit out of Holman Boulevard as we speak.
I think we're going to set up for a run down the front straightaway here. Jacob Loomis, got to be patient. Don't make a low percentage move. Parker Thompson's going to go around the outside of Loomis, potentially coming out of turn number 12 or turn 11. Different story here for Ian Rodriguez. He was putting the pressure on Nikita Listoshkin for a time. Now finds himself potentially dropping back to 7th as he's got 2 young lions. Here comes Parker Thompson. He's to the inside of Loomis. Thompson to P6 over in turn 13. So Parker Thompson leveraging the fact that Loomis got caught up a little bit behind Rodriguez. He'll go to the bottom of the track. Loomis is going to go to the outside. Moises de Oliveira, the number 6, ready to join the battle. Thompson trying to hold off Loomis coming through turn number 1. They'll get through that corner. Contact. Loomis gets together with Parker Thompson a little bit. He falls right back to the tail of that group. He just needed to let that one go, I think, but tried to force the issue on the outside, dropped a couple of wheels. Parker Thompson's lost a spot as well. De Oliveira now up into 6th. So Moises de Oliveira able to capitalize. He gets by Parker Thompson. Still a handful of laps to go. 5 laps remaining. Parker Thompson made that move to take over 6th spot, but lost it. He'll have to go to work now on De Oliveira. Jacob Loomis, I believe, potentially back into 12th position, maybe 11th. I don't think he went all the way back to 12th. He's still ahead of Corey Enders. But Jacob Loomis was trying that position on the outside, and that's always tough, Greg, as you know, through turn number 1 there. It'll work, but you got to make sure you keep that car on the racetrack. You drop a wheel, you're in trouble.
But it's also what we talked about, how stacked up they were at 5 through 11. So, again, in other spots in this field, if you had made that mistake, it would have cost you 1 spot, maybe 2. That was the absolute worst time that it could have happened because you had so many cars lined up behind you.
Parker Thompson trying to reel back in De Oliveira. We'll watch what happens. He's only 0.4 of a second back, so look for Parker Thompson. They've caught up as well to Ian Rodriguez, so now it is De Oliveira trying to get Rodriguez.
And by the way, the final tally, Loomis goes from 6th to 11th as part of, again, that off-track incident.
Kyle Kirkwood, who remains on the racetrack after that incident early on that damaged his nose, a lap back, but just set fast lap of the race. That's a bonus point as well, so good for him to grab that bonus point. But again, his season off to a rough start with a couple of incidents where he had to come in to swap noses. So Kirkwood 13th on the racetrack, but with the fast lap.
And again, given the success that he had in multiple forms of different racing last year, frankly, this is also a learning experience. Not everything is going to go as ridiculously well as it did for Kirkwood last year. This is something you'll learn and grow from going forward.
That's so true. Gap between 2nd and 3rd back to 0.7 of a second as Stingray Robb, again, putting down some good lap times. So the top 3 drivers pretty static here with about 3 laps to go. Listoshkin by himself in 4th, but here comes this battle for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. They are trying to find a way by, and in fact, he already has. Good move. They've both got by. Both De Oliveira and Thompson by Ian Rodriguez, who goes down to 7th. Now Philippe Dennis lining up to see if he can't get by Rodriguez. So Philippe Dennis in the Fat Boy Racing entry was 10th a couple of laps ago. He's now up to 8th, ready to battle for 7th. So a good run for Philippe Dennis in the Fat Boy Racing entry.
And again, the grind continues for Parker Thompson. Points racing. Maybe that was not the plan this weekend, but he has turned it into it. Not having fast cars in either qualifying session yesterday. A 5th place finish a day ago, now 6th. Currently 2nd in the points championship. He was in first coming in, but managing to limit the damage, if you will, this weekend, not having the fastest car.
Agreed. You do what you can with what you have, right? That's the key, and that's what wins championships is maximizing the package that you have. It may not be a winning package, but if you can get yourself back into the top 5, which Thompson's going to try to do here as he battles with De La Vera, that would be the best he could do. A couple of top 5s after qualifying dead last in both of the races, I think would be big for Parker Thompson. He would call that a win, I think. Parker Thompson again trying to spool up, coming out of the final corner to see if he can't get by Moses De La Vera. Closing up again. He was 4 or 5 tenths back last time. Gets it down to within 3 tenths of a second. Parker Thompson right with him as they make the run down into 1. Parker Thompson to the inside, side by side through turn 1. Side by side through 1, Thompson and Lestoshkin. Or rather, Thompson and De La Vera. I think that was De La Vera potentially slowed there. So De La Vera, exactly like Loomis, didn't want to give it up, and he's fallen down the order. Indeed, there's Parker Thompson coming through. He's clean. We'll watch what happens here. Let's see a replay. Here they come down into the corner. There's Thompson on the inside, De La Vera on the outside through that part of the racetrack. De La Vera not wanting to give it up. And, yeah, he just drove off track. Parker was all the way out to the rumbles. So De La Vera coming back onto the racetrack. And you can see everyone making evasive maneuvers. A good run there. I wonder if Philippe Dennis got a good run on the outside of Rodriguez. I think Philippe Dennis potentially up into the 6th spot. We'll see if he was able to get back onto the racetrack. We couldn't see it from the replay. But, again, Greg Moises De La Vera just pushing a little too hard, didn't want to give that up, and same as Loomis, off the racetrack, and you're going to lose spots when that happens.
Back to the front of the field. Again, we've just got a couple of laps left to go. Rasmus Lint has it on cruise control. He's been a couple of seconds in front of those behind him for the entire race. Daniel Frost seems to be able to get to about 4 tenths back from Stingray Robb, but hasn't found a way to get around him. And then Nikita Lestoshkin is truly running his own race. He's got 12 seconds of gap in front of him, 12 seconds of gap behind him as he currently runs in 4th. But the battles, as we have been showing you, have been from 5th on down. Could be a battle between 2nd and 3rd. Just not sure if there's enough mileage left in this race for that to truly be a battle for 2nd place.
We're going to see the white flag this next time by, I believe. And indeed, it's Junkos Racing 1st and 2nd. Exclusive Autosport in 3rd and 4th. Able Motorsports in 5th and 7th. After a tough start, they got a couple of drivers in the front half of this grid. Thompson, P5, Jacob Abel in P7. He was able to take advantage of some of the issues coming through turns number 1, 2, and 3. Good job for Jacob Abel in the 51. White flag flying now for Rasmus Lint. Stingray Robb 2nd. Daniel Frost about 8 tenths of a second back in 3rd. As Greg said, it's been a lonely day for Nikita Lestoshkin, and he'll take that. Currently P4. Parker Thompson getting up to 5th. Now just 11 points out of the point lead as Rasmuth running as the leader. 109 points. Parker Thompson 98 points. So he definitely limited the bleeding from the instant, the issue of not having that early pace. Final lap for the drivers here in Indy Pro 2000.
Rob, we've talked about a dominant weekend for Rasmuth Lint. How about what he has done in this race? Leading every lap of the race, never seriously challenged.
Yeah, didn't put a wheel wrong at all. His lap, if you look at his lap times, it's going to be anywhere from a 19.8 to a 20 flat. That's pretty much all he did all race long. The consistency of young Rasmus Lint, the young Swede. It's been a bit of a Swedish invasion here in the road to Indy and in IndyCar as well. Big run, of course, yesterday for Felix Rosenqvist in qualifying. He'll be on pole for the race here today, but his fellow countryman Rasmus Lint in the number 10. Going to roll around this racetrack to his 2nd career road to Indy victory. All those wins, both of them coming here this weekend. He is your winner as the double checker displayed here at start finish. Rasmus Lint winning by 2 seconds over Stingray Robb. Daniel Frost, another podium in 3rd position. He'll be right there, third in points for Daniel Frost. Nikita Listoshkin coming across the line. Good run for Nikita. His best finish of the year, P4. So Exclusive Autosport, third and fourth. Juncos Racing, first and second. Parker Thompson will take another top 5. There's no doubt about that. He picked up that car and muscled his way into the top 5. Coming across the line, 6, Moises De Oliveira. Good run for De Oliveira, P6. Jacob Abel from deep in the field to 7th. Philippe Dennis in 8th. Antonio Saravalli in 9th. Corey Enders 10th. Jacob Loomis 11th. Ian Rodriguez falling down to 12th in the late going. Kyle Kirkwood 1 lap down in the 13th spot with the fast lap of the race, though. And Charles Finelli finishes off his race here as well. Good job for Charles in the number 83 machine. But, Greg, we saw some domination.
Yep.
Braden Eves in USF 2000, Rasmuth Lint in Indy Pro.
Let's talk about, though, from a point standpoint, what Thompson was able to do in terms of working his car to back-to-back fifth-place finishes. Obviously came in as the points leader, having swept both events at St. Petersburg. Only 11 points back. So, again, you've now got a little time to figure it out when you go oval racing a couple of weeks from now. And for Kirkwood, able to go from last to second yesterday, but with the wing damage early, only could pick up 1 car in terms of the placement. So the 13th place finish for Kirkwood today. Devastating in terms of the point standings, but it's a long season. There's a lot more races left to go after this one.
You never know what's going to happen on the racetrack. The driver who's the point leader could get involved in the incident. We've seen that happen many, many times. But again, Rasmuth Lint, just a tremendous run. But to go back to Parker Thompson, where they were on Thursday afternoon official practice, the one practice session. We had 2 unofficial sessions and 1 official practice session that day. Where he was there and where he was in both qualifying efforts where he was last. Parker Thompson was the slowest driver on the racetrack. They weren't able to sort out the setup. What they've done and what he's been able to do here in the 2 races, a couple of back-to-back fifth-place finishes, absolutely amazing for Parker Thompson to be able to get that job done.
And let's talk about the efforts of Juncos Racing. They put both cars on the front row for this race. Both cars hold that position. First for Rasmus Lint, but also Stingray Robb started second, finished second as well.
Yeah, Juncos Racing winning the championship last year with Renus VK. They have not let up off the throttle at all. Ricardo Juncos' team is rolling here in this Indy Pro 2000 category. They're looking really good as well in Indy Lights. But again, here he comes out of the car, and he is pumped. Rasmuth Lint, a couple of big wins. You know, our folks watching on the Road to Indy TV app or roadtoindy.tv back home in Sweden will be absolutely pumped. And here's the 2 Juncos drivers. Little embrace. Dan Anderson coming down as well from Anderson Promotions. He's the man behind this whole program. Dan coming to give a little handshake there to Rasmuth Lint, who gets the win. Stingray Robb in second. Daniel Frost in third. Nikita Listoshkin fourth. Parker Thompson fifth. Moises De Oliveira ends up in the 6th spot. Jacob Abel in 7th. Philippe Dennis 8th. Antonio Saravalli and Corey Enders rounding out the top 10. Let's head down to pit lane and Katie Hargett.
And Rob, Rasmuth Lint led every single lap here in the Indy Pro 2000 category of the IMS Road Course. Rasmuth, what did you figure out about this course?
Yeah, I always liked Indy, and especially I want to thank Juncos Racing for amazing weekend and perfect car a week. Yeah, we just figure out a good way for the race, so and we just bring it home, so I'm very happy.
And a dominant weekend for him it was, Greg and Rob.